Okay, so here's what's going on. Yeah, so I'm going to be real. I didn't do any research, which I think he wanted me not to do any research anyway, but I still usually sneakily do a little research. When someone's like, oh, you should go in blind, I usually still do some Googling. I did not. Literally the only thing I did was just make sure that I was referring to the Mexican soccer team that I like, Pumas. I was just making sure I was making sure I was pronouncing that right, because I knew I'd have to say that out loud.
Perfect.
Pumas.
I'll miss some of that. I haven't done too many, any stats research, so I'll be spouting off.
So if Joe
Rogan can do it, I can do it.
Yeah, he wings it, and he gets a lot of listeners. Well, welcome everybody to the Fruitless Patreon, and we got Nate Thiessen again. Hello, Nate.
How's it going?
And Nate wanted to talk about sports because over the last year, little under a year, I went from being somebody who doesn't follow sports at all to somebody who kind of follows sports now. And I think Nate never thought that would happen.
On my list of friends who would never become, it's not even just following, but actually genuinely seemingly emotionally interested in multiple teams very quickly, Josiah would have been pretty low on that list. I don't know if I'd say last, but pretty low. Yeah. So you wanted to kind of poke at that and talk about that. I'm interested. The thing that got me the most, because we had talked before, and I think my take on sports fandom for a long time had been more leftists need to be into sports. How could you be pro-union but not talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers? Essentially essentially being the argument. You need to be able to talk about normal things to be able to enter into that. And this is a very big generalization, but a lot of farther lefty types just had an anti-sports ball thing. Calling it that in a very mocking way. And I think I probably lump a lot of that in with also having been a musician for so long. Most people in music are at most I like this one team and I really care about that team, but I don't care about the overall sports. Again, a bit of a generalization, but I'd say at least in the scenes I've been a part of, me being a hardcore sports fan is definitely a minority position.
And I think for me, I think I had a really stupid high school clique understanding of I wouldn't have said this out loud a year ago, but I think in my brain I still had this thing of there are the nerds or the artsy people that are into music on one side of my brain, and then the dumb jocks who like sports on the other side of my brain. And I understood there were exceptions, but mentally I think that was still a barrier in my head. Yeah. That I couldn't do that. I'm one of these guys. I don't like this. And then, the more exceptions I ran into, the more I realized that wasn't the case, but it was still really internalized in me. And I think a lot of lefties do actually end up that way. Not all at all. Especially the more exposure I've had to left-wing circles, the more, sports guys I've met who do that. Also because, you could be a nerd and be a sports guy. That's what is a baseball stats person,
right.
If not
Huge.
A nerd.
I don't listen to most baseball podcasts because most of the ones that are successful are very nerdy. And I'm can we just talk about the games though? I don't listen to most, and baseball might be my favorite sport. But I don't listen to most podcasts because it is so nerdy. And I'm okay, but yeah.
So I don't know. I think I had that barrier in my head, even though I logically didn't believe, look at the world through high school clique eyes anymore. I still had that barrier. And then it would have been last summer, right? Was the Copa America?
Yeah, for sure.
That was when I finally it clicked with me a bit. And then it's been kind of a slow process since. And I the reason for that was kind of funny is it was just a coincidence of what I was interested in at the time.
Right. Yeah.
That's just all it was. We done the episode last summer on the book If We Burn by Vincent Bevins, which is a really great book. And even though it's the longest episode of Fruitless I've ever done, it's a favorite of mine. So people should go back and listen to that. But one of the parts that we talk about in that is the 2014 World Cup? That's the 7-1, right? It's 2014.
Yeah, yep, 7-1.
Okay.
Yep.
So that we talk about that in the episode because Vincent Bevins was at the World Cup. He was there because he was a journalist in Brazil, and so most of the book is about the protest movements. But because of that, the protest movements all happened in 2013, and then they all kind of got crushed or fell apart. And so then he was using the World Cup as this big exclamation point at the end of that moment to be like, and then this is when everybody in Brazil was like, oh, fuck this. Like, we're done. Like, we're not even good at soccer anymore.
Yeah. That game was wild. That's one of the craziest games I've ever watched. Probably the most shocking game I've ever watched. I didn't even watch it live. When I was working, and I was doing a lot of deliveries, and I had taken off the Argentina game for the next day. And so I was like, well, I'll record this and watch it later. And I was just getting too many texts. I think I was like, they're like, dude, what's going on? And it was like 5-0, 30 minutes in. And then so I went home and I just started the recording from the beginning. I didn't even wait for my brother to get home just because I was like, I'd watch that. And I knew he wouldn't be able to keep that score from him too. And it was, even watching it happen, it just didn't even seem. I mean, it was a World Cup semifinal. Those are mostly 0-0, 1-0, like 7-1 at home. With and I think the storyline at the time too is that it was going to be the Brazil-Argentina final. Like, it was going to be
it seemed like that's where it was going, and then it just fell apart, and so it became really politically emblematic of everything that had gone on in that country. Of just like, we're fucking cursed. Is like how it kind of felt. And so that was interesting to me. And I, in general, after reading that book, was kind of like interested in Latin American politics for a bit. So I was like going back and listening to like Mike Duncan's Revolutions series on the Spanish American Wars for Independence, which are great series. And so my brain was just really Latin America, interested in that. And then I was like on Twitter and I see Copa America final is going. And I'm like, fuck it. Today's the day I get into soccer. Why don't I watch it? So I watch it, and then I remember I texted you, and I was like, "Hey, who am I cheering for?" And you're like, "Argentina." And I'm like, "Got it, cool." And
yeah, that was a shocking text. It was cool.
And then I got invested pretty quick, because then I was able to see the emotional stakes pretty quickly, because Messi got injured like halfway through.
Yeah.
And so then it was like a question of, is Argentina going to pull it off without Messi? Mm-hmm. And so then I was like, okay, that's enough for me to like be invested and understand what's happening and see what the stakes are, Yeah. And so then that kind of did it for me. And then from there, I've kind of just, it was soccer, and then I've started to touch into football. And then I'm going to try baseball here as spring training wraps up. And then I periodically tuned into some hockey. So that's where I'm at right now.
That cool. So you kind of touched on all things that I wanted to like touch on, and that sounds good. I don't know where to start. I guess I think so that Copa America game, so it was obviously like the passion that drew you in, because I do remember a little bit, but part of it was probably just that it was COVID, so there was nothing going on. You were kind of tweeting about the Euros a little bit when they happened in like 2021 or whatever.
Oh yeah, this is the thing, is I always knew like if I was going to latch onto sport, it would probably be soccer, because I don't know, the rules are really simple with soccer. Like I don't have to. Right. You just watch it a little bit. Okay, the ball's trying to get into the goal. Got it. Mm-hmm. Got it. It's easy. And so I did. I was trying to get into like the only American football game I'll ever tune into is the Super Bowl usually. And so then I was trying to develop that with soccer, where like, okay, I'll check in with like the World Cup when it happens,
right?
Or some of that, and then do the same thing I would do with the Super Bowl, which is just quickly, arbitrarily decide who I'm rooting for and then do it. So yeah, there was a little bit of that in the past, but then it was Copa America, I think, was the first time I actually like kind of got invested a bit.
For sure. And that was probably mostly, especially being Copa America, like that has the reputation for being probably the craziest tournament.
Yeah.
Right? Like, and just in terms of the style of play and stuff, which kind of gets into that immediately. I think soccer is accessible because that immediately gets into politics and cultures and stuff. Because there are, in my opinion anyway, like there are ways that cultures play. Like Latin Americans teams play a type of way, generally speaking. Yeah. Even in terms of like, we've talked about like Latin American players might dive a little more. It's not that they're the only ones that dive and stuff like that, but it's part of the trickery is part of the game. That trickery comes up in how they dribble and stuff too. That trickery also comes in how they treat referees, like, and stuff like that. you know.
Yeah, I mean, and I think, Latin American soccer, I think, is what I've latched onto most. Like, I've started, because the big stuff is often in Europe, I've started to get there. But, like, the Latin American stuff was the stuff I latched onto, I think.
I can't remember so the African tournament is my second favorite one to watch.
I haven't watched any of that yet.
It's a winter tournament, and it is, I think there was one last year. I think it's every 2 years. Yeah, so there'll be one coming up in 2026. That's another good one. Especially that's been coming up recently because English pundit made a comment that it wasn't a major tournament, which was shut down pretty much immediately.
Yeah.
But that's another good one where the passion is top notch, especially for like an international tournament. So you pretty quickly though, I know you'd been like meaning to, was there something about that game itself that really made you be like, okay, this is the time I'm committing now? Like what clicked beyond just like, cause that still was a final, right? And it was messy. So there's a lot of, okay, I'll watch this one.
Well, I think what really helped it latch on to is the Olympics was like pretty quickly afterwards. This was a preview for a Patreon only episode. So check out the show notes if you want to hear more.